It shows how difficult that subject can be to talk about, but I'm really happy that we've been able to talk about it on the channel. There isn't, hopefully, a topic in our hobby and industry that we won't go near, but we will actually have some more content coming up from that collaboration very, very soon. Been hot in the edit side of things. One video which should actually hopefully be released tomorrow evening is actually one focusing on police powers, with a comprehensive and complete breakdown with all of the legislation on screen and everything else like that. When can they ask for operator ID? When can they ask you to land your drone? What powers? Showing the legislation, etc. When can they seize? All of that type of thing. It's fully comprehensive. Very, very proud of that particular video, and hopefully it will help us out, particularly in the hobby, to know what we can do. So essentially, if you have an issue with an officer, you can play them this video, frankly. So hopefully that will be released tomorrow evening. Other topics coming from that collaboration with the Police Chiefs Council will include things like talking about council rights to stop you flying and the enforcement of that from the police side of things, what to do if an officer doesn't know the rules, which I think will be quite an interesting video in itself, which I already know it's an interesting video because I've already recorded it. Advice on reporting your drone flights, who you should report those to, etc. There's a lot of talk about letting the police know about your drone flights, and I've had a bit of a digging into that as far as should you be doing that and that type of thing, and much more on that collaboration. We've sat down and we've recorded a bank of videos, so as the weeks roll on, I will slowly be releasing those out to hopefully build up alongside our drone rules videos and alongside our interviews with the CAA to hopefully start to put together a comprehensive picture of the drone hobby in the UK here, and some actual answers, which is obviously what we need to do. So on to tonight's topic. Chris Hearn, good to see you in the chat, actually. Just brought to see that. Crikey, I even brought some Geeksvana merch. Hasn't arrived yet. Hope it's not on the drone lines. Yes, and Chris, we need to sit down and do our Zoom midweek, if you're available after work, etc. And Andy Dubrell, thank you very much for the £1 super sticker there of an ice cream. I do like ice cream, but hasn't the weather started to change? It's pretty dramatic. And Bruce is saying, does your drone have to identify itself when asked by a policeman? Yes. Well, you know, if you looked at the Tesla releases recently with the Tesla bot, perhaps your drone will be doing a lot more by itself in future decades. I wouldn't say in future years, but that was an interesting release, wasn't it? That's again a whole other topic, possibly for our other tech channel, which we're launching very soon. So on to tonight's topic. I will not go squirrel, as they call it, here on Geeksvana too much. So we do have another delivery drone crashing and causing a few negative headlines recently. It's interesting that we either get a lot of positive, a lot of PR from the drone delivery companies, or the companies that would like to be involved in that space. We've got a lot of very positive PR with a lot of spending, a lot of lobbying behind it. So therefore, the big PR side of it is well funded as well. So we get a lot of positive news stories. And then, of course, when things like this happen, the story we're about to talk about, you also get the negative side of things as well. So it's an interesting situation, really. We don't get to hear too much of the middle ground, which, before I go down that rabbit hole, I also want to get your opinion as my community, as an audience, as far as the kind of things that we need to be finding out here. For me, I really want to know how it's going to affect the hobby. Are all the big players really looking to sideline the hobby as much as possible? Will remote ID help drone delivery? Will remote ID even have anything to do with drone delivery? And when I talk about drone delivery in this particular instance, I'm talking about your residential drone delivery, so your coffee arriving, or your pizza, or Ken Heron's tube socks, etc. As many fans of TNL will know, he believes it won't happen. So I think when it does happen in this area, if it happens, everyone will be ordering him socks, frankly. So there is a big future in terms of drone delivery in specific use case, certainly. Medical supplies, military logistics, remote locations, etc. That side of things I'm very certain of, in terms of there is going to be some kind of future there. One of the biggest problems that I always have with a lot of the trials that are happening and that type of thing is once you start to scale it, once you start to say, okay, this is no longer a venture capitalist funded trial, which has cost us tens of millions, hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars to put on. We now need this to actually wash its own face as such. We now need this to start paying its way. And how you scale that is really one of the things which I think is perhaps potentially most challenging for the industry. So we have had this very unique photo here, which was actually taken by the Energex, the energy company involved. And we're just going to run through the main points of this story, and then come back round, have a little look at the company Wing, who is Google, and really have a look at the messages they're putting out and what kind of thing they're attempting to do here. So you can see here, obviously a fairly large quadcopter with a very small package on the bottom there. And as the headline here is saying, thousands of people were left without power, thousands, after a food delivery drone crashed into power lines yesterday in what has been described as a first by Energex, who are the energy company who had to deal with the fallout. The Energex spokesman, Danny Donald, told ABC Brisbane that people in the Browns Plains area south of Brisbane and the immediate surrounds lost power yesterday after a drone carrying food hit the network at about 2 p.m. So very much a middle of the day daytime flight here we're talking about. Energex restored power for about 2,000 customers within 45 minutes, whilst 300 customers in the immediate vicinity of that drone were without power for 3 hours. This part I find interesting, but anyway, the meal inside was actually still hot inside the drone's delivery box when the crew got there. Mr. Donald said so. Yay for that side of things, I suppose. Which is interesting. This is the first time I've seen it happen. It could have simply been an equipment malfunction. It may have been a human error. Mr. Donald said there were no permanent damage to the network, and thus would not be requesting the food delivery company to cover the damage. However, he said if any person or company caused network damage, for example, by reversing into a power pole, Energex could seek the cost of damage repairs. He said everyone, including companies, had to be careful not to let objects hit the power lines or cause damage to the network. 15 years ago, we asked people to be careful when they were giving their children kites for Christmas and they were flying them. Now we're asking parents to be very careful where their kids fly their drones, he said. It could bring down live power lines. The last thing we want is people in danger. Now, there's just at the beginning of that, there's this whole mismatch of and coming together of drones and the different types of drones. There's everything from the Mini 3 on the wall here behind me through to Reaper drones, military Reaper drones flying missions over all sorts of parts of the world. This whole thing of mixing it all together seems to be a bit of a PR issue, seems to be a bit of an issue for me, because we've gone within a couple of paragraphs of a very reasonable sounding gentleman from the Energex company, from talking about a very large, bear in mind, this is a large delivery drone that has had this problem and that has crashed into their power lines. Okay, not causing any damage, to being very nice about it and saying, hey, there's no damage, so we're not going to be looking for any, we obviously therefore can't be going for damages or causing problems with the delivery drone company, etc. I wonder if that would be different if that was your Mavic 3 that hit those power lines and was stuck up there, etc. I wonder if there would be a sudden charge for bringing all those homes back online, bringing those thousands of houses back online with the engineers needing to come out. Was that not a cost? Is that not damages? But then also this part where he comes down to talking about 15 years ago, they asked people to be careful about kites, and now we're asking parents to be very careful where their kids fly their drones. Well, of course, this wasn't that kind of drone. This wasn't a hobbyist drone. This wasn't a kid with their Mini 3 causing this kind of problem. It's it's an interesting one. So as it says here, Energex asked for common sense to prevail. And over the years, a number of objects, including shoes, umbrellas, trampolines, kites, even toilet seats. Come on now, Bruce, admit it. I think you put trainers over the power lines in New Zealand, don't you, to mark your territory? Come on, admit it. But Mr. Donald said while there was an immediate danger if anything hit live power lines, there was also significant inconvenience to the residences and businesses that lost power. It's not just homes and businesses. We're talking street lights, traffic lights, and that sort of thing, he said. It's common sense, really, and we're asking for that to prevail. A spokesman for Wing, who noticed that this part of the story is quite short, the company that operates the drone delivery, said a drone made a precautionary Wait for it. Wait for it. Now, build yourselves up onto this, guys. Okay. Let's take a deep breath. What could Wing possibly say? What could a multi-billion-dollar company, obviously, you know, with an even bigger multi-billion-dollar company backing it? Thank you for things like YouTube, etc. That particular company. What could they possibly say? What could they possibly say about this crash into Powerlines? Okay, and I'm sure many people have already seen this. This particular part of the story from a few days ago, and said the drone made a precautionary controlled landing yesterday and came to rest on an overhead power line. We immediately reported this to Energex, who attended the location, the spokesman said. 2 hours later, during the retrieval process, there was a power outage in the area. We're sorry for any inconvenience caused. We're currently conducting a review of yesterday's event. That's an interesting one, isn't it, to me? It's interesting from the whole, really the whole structure of this story as well. I wonder how many people and how much time was spent coming up with a precautionary controlled landing yesterday, and it came to rest on overhead power line. Not the drone was going to become immediately uncontrollable, so we decided to crash it into power lines because it was potentially the least. And I also wonder if a controlled landing suggests they could have landed it somewhere else. Did they not want this drone landing on the street or in someone's residence or that type of thing? They didn't want the PR of having to retrieve this thing or it being sat on the street. I'm not sure, because again, controlled landing yesterday. You know, a precautionary controlled landing as well. So from the point of view that, is that actually even a strategy then? Is that even a strategy within Wing, where they will, if they have a problem, they'll try to land their drones somewhere where we can't get to them? I mean, I can't imagine for a moment any kind of safe aviation program would recommend landing a drone on live power lines. It's possible that they were trying to land and that they, with the issues they were having, they didn't see the power lines. I suppose they are quite major power lines, but you know, it is being flown, BV loss, etc. So it's an interesting one from that point of view, isn't it? It's something that, and again, we're going to look at Wing in a little bit more detail in a moment, but it's something that I think has a lot of potential there from the point of view of looking very negative, from the point of view that the energy company didn't talk about going after Wing in terms of the costs of putting this back online. There may be some kind of deal happening there in the background, who knows? But also the issue of really the wording that Wing have put out, because don't get me wrong, with any innovation, with any kind of new thing that's happening, there has to be failure, and we have to be, we have to allow that failure to happen. We have to allow companies to fail. We have to allow things to happen like that. Obviously not when safety is involved, but things are going to happen. You know, delivery vans crash every day, and you know, things happen. Things do happen, but this is concerning from a safety point of view. But also, I just don't like the wording. I don't know why. It really bugs me. A precautionary controlled landing yesterday, and it came to rest on an overhead power line. I'm going to try and not obsess over it too much, but let's have a look. Let's have a look at the company involved here, Wing, who are, as we all know, by far one of the biggest companies, by far one of the biggest names within the drone delivery side of things, and this is their main website. So again, looking at the size of aircraft that they're looking at, pretty big beast there. As KPV said in the chat just before the show started, with the thumbnail showing the one here on the right, I think it was actually that was on the news article picture, that has it got enough props, and it certainly looks to concentrate on a bit of vertical takeoff there, doesn't it? And of course, it's talking about automation at scale, so the aircraft operate autonomously, advanced vision. Again, even on these ones, showing the very small payload. And again, I realize I'm not saying that I think this is the final solution. I'm not saying these are the final aircraft that could well end up dotting our skies, etc. I'm not saying that at all. I think that it's still, though, it talks about automation that scales, the automation scales, but does the actual financial viability of you know, how do you go from this large aircraft needing this much power to lift off, etc., and be this efficient, being able to carry this level of payload. I'd be very interested to know what tests they've done as far as how heavy those things can get. And there you have the little box. I don't know if anybody saw, there's been a couple of news reports recently from Australia showing people opening these boxes, etc. And you typically get a coffee, some donuts, that type of thing, a bit of bread, milk, etc. in there. And again, obviously, yeah, they are looking to keep the hot things hot, etc. So interesting. And talking about taking on demand delivery to the next level. Now, one of the things I think is always interesting when we look at companies like this is what they're telling partners, is what they're telling people within their system that they want to work with. So you can sometimes get different messages in terms of when you're talking to these companies, in terms of what they'll put out as PR, what they'll tell the press, journalists, etc. And, you know, what's on their sort of, you know, their marketing on their YouTube channels and that type of thing, and actually what they then say to their partners that they actually want to work with. So here they're talking about obviously wanting to partner with Wing, your goods delivered in minutes, and they've actually got a little form that you fill out here so that you can do that if you so wish, which takes you to the bottom of the page. But they talk about being able to do fast delivery, store to door within 15 minutes, impressive, cost effective at scale. Autonomous flights and low energy consumption means cost savings on your deliveries. Again, I understand that in terms of the future, and I understand that once they have got over what I see are fairly significant issues in terms of scaling this type of thing. But I don't think you're necessarily there at the point where you can say that the autonomous flights and low energy consumption means cost savings on your deliveries, because yes, that one cup of coffee, that one hot, I'm going to say hot sausage, that sausage roll or whatever you're delivering. Anyone else getting hungry? Whatever you're actually delivering will get there, and that one unit will be at low cost. In you can make a pretty fancy Excel sheet and show me some pretty cool figures to show, yes, that individual unit is actually cost effective in energy terms, etc. But when you want to scale that, when you're a business that's having deliveries happening, let's say like a pizza company or something that's having, you know, so many deliveries, and the more deliveries the better, frankly, you're not necessarily going to get the same scale that you could even with your existing delivery cars and vans, which of course already have an infrastructure. You don't have to invest in that infrastructure. And sustainability, sustainable, 50 times more efficient than average gasoline powered vehicle, which again, yes, I understand that it is, I'm sure, 50 times more efficient, and that makes it more sustainable. And this is the thing with drone delivery, is that we have a push in terms of governments around the world and therefore regulators who want drone delivery to be a thing of the future, because again, pushing for carbon zero, etc. If they're able to make this work, if they can make drone delivery happen on scale, and I don't just mean for Walmart, coffee and that type of thing, and I don't just mean for even Amazon and things like that. I mean, on a bigger scale, if we could have our skies somehow filled with delivery drones delivering all sorts of kinds of things, then yes, that can, in theory, there's still hurdles, there's still, you know, even if you could do that, scale it to that level, you are then talking about being in a situation where you could actually potentially have a very efficient network. But again, 50 times more efficient than the average gasoline powered vehicle. But that vehicle can do so many deliveries while it's out. So I think the scale, I think the examples that they're giving in terms of stacking up to the existing network just really doesn't work, frankly. And then we have a little video which plays out about partnering with Wing, which, as you might expect, shows a drone we might have seen somewhere resting, not crashing, resting on some power lines. And you can see, obviously, the partner then bringing the goods on there, etc., which is all fun and games, and zipping off and delivering at some point to the customer. So again, you've got the logistics side of things of needing to be able to deal with these things on the side of the partner, so on the side of Walmart, etc. So you have this area here, which obviously is a landing platform with the QR code, so the drone knows where to go back to. It's very clever. And I think certainly I could see something like a 5th or 6th or 10th generation of this actually probably working quite well. And if you imagine the evolution and the innovation that's going to be going into these drones, again, the 10th generation of these drones beyond where we are now, because I realize they're already at X generation, but 10 more generations of evolution, I think then yes, I could see this side of things, the actual side of working and integrating it within the partner within Walmart, etc., could work very well, because even once this does become established, you could even build that to actually how they build these retail parks, etc. So I can see that. I'll give them that. Let's give them some things. And we are now 2/3 of the way through the video, and they haven't actually started showing. You notice actually where showing them loading it was a very, very short part of it. So there's the drone picking up its little parcels. It comes from its rooftop charging bay, and then it's obviously interacted with that gentleman to put the parcel on board, and now it's flying out to the very lucky customer. Very cool shots, whoever took these shots, by drone on drone shots that these are. And it doesn't actually show the bit of getting to the customer, which is interesting in their partnering with Wing. I know, again, obviously they're focusing on that side of things, on the partner side of things, but I would have thought they would have shown us some footage of the cable coming down and the happy customer unpicking it and walking away with their goods, which of course is that's the part that they're selling to the partners, to these Walgreens and Walmarts, etc. And by the numbers, it's saying 250,000 commercial drone deliveries, which is impressive. Their fastest delivery of 2 minutes 47 seconds across 10 locations, 87% approval for drone delivery in our first US service area. And they're all stats. And every company, I could come up with stats for Geeksvana channel with my 17,000 subscribers, and I love you all, that would make me sound like I'm bigger than Casey Neistat's channel, etc. It's all about stats. It's all about making that, it's all about creating that PR, which I understand. So we have to let them off that for a little bit. I'm obviously giving them a little bit of leeway here, as you can tell. And then safer than other delivery methods with intelligent flight planning, a lightweight aircraft design, and a broad range of built-in redundancies, we believe we've created the safest mode of delivery in the world. That's a big claim. That's a big claim to me. To say that it's safer than other delivery methods, that they believe. You put "I believe." It's kind of like when you put things in inverted commas, or if I have a particularly clicky video that I want to put out about the new Mini, the DJI Mini Pro 4 coming, you put a question mark on the end. You're not actually saying it's coming. You're saying, is it coming? So, and that's kind of like where the "we believe" part comes in here. We believe we've created the safest mode of delivery in the world. I would be interested to hear, and we will be contacting. We have started the process of speaking to Wing on their excellent press department. So we have started that process. So we will be putting these questions to them as far as how they feel that they can say that. But that's how the partner in terms of delivery is concerned. Now, we have another word here when we look at the partnering with us, and that's ecosystem. And what does that conjure up? What does ecosystem conjures up? Obviously, I suppose the companies that are going to build the drones for them, that are the software that's going to run all of this, the companies that are going to build the pods and everything else like that, the actual infrastructure where the drones are going to launch from, where the drones will land, and that type of thing. That, to me, if someone talks about ecosystem, there's all of those kind of things. I mean, we even talk about ecosystems in technology terms, in terms of the Android ecosystem or the iOS ecosystem, etc. So I can understand that. So let's have a look at what Wing talk about in terms of that. So collaboratively creating an end-to-end ecosystem. Again, there's a partner with Wing box, which again gives you the ability to open up a conversation with them, which is an interesting way of getting partners on that side of things. But hey, it's good to see them open. So they're talking about real estate. Their lightweight modular infrastructure allows us to work with a range of organizations and property types to stage drone delivery options. So as I was saying, that's very much what you'd expect. Airspace access. We collaborate with regulators and build tools to enable access to the airspace. Calm down, Bruce. I'm not even reading the chat very much right now, but I know with airspace access, that's going to trigger a certain Kiwi YouTube creator that we all love. Technology, we partner with aviation and technology providers to support innovations and standards that advance drone deliveries. Well, yes, of course you would do, because that's obviously your business. So I could understand that. That all seems straightforward to me. So what's the ecosystem? The purpose of the ecosystem is to create a collaborative, accessible, diverse, and equitable airspace. The ecosystem connects ground-based partners for real estate and data sources for the commercial operators, while also applying those principles for recreational or small business flyers. We get our first mention, hobbyists. We get our first mention, small business flyers. Interesting one. So the ecosystem, they don't just see their ecosystem in terms of Wing as their ecosystem to make their thing work. We're part of it. Us flying our minis and this type of thing are part of the ecosystem. So let's have a look at what they mean from that. So RPAS platform. The RPAS platform is a USSP ecosystem oversight and management tool. It provides authorities with a number of valuable tools to ensure safe operations in an integrated airspace, such as U-Space. Now, this is an interesting one because I've had some experience, and again, we're only focusing on Wing because it is their drone that came to rest on Powerlines in Australia, or crashed. But that's the only reason we're focusing on them on them this evening. And also, to be fair to Wing, they're one of the most open. They have more information about their drone delivery network, about their UTM plans, about everything else than anybody else. So to be fair to them, they are actually looking to engage. They are actually looking to talk to people about how they do this. But sometimes you need to dig a little bit more as far as finding that out. One thing that, when they talk about this RPAS platform, one thing that I came across was a webinar. And I've sat in a lot of webinars of future flight and this type of thing set up by all sorts of national organizations, including regulators from around the world. And you can attend these free webinars and basically learn about different things that are happening in the future of our regulatory airspace. You'd expect as a journalist in this field that I would be doing that. And one of the most interesting ones that I watched was actually it was actually an FAA webinar symposium get together on this, and there was a representative from Wing talking about how their RPAS platform that they're developing would help deal with things in terms of, you've guessed it, us hobby flyers, but also, as they say, small business flyers, but also things like emergency services vehicles as well. Now, as you can see here, they've got the little picture of the drone flying through the little map here, with absolutely no explanation of what any of these things mean, but showing us at least that there is an issue of needing to get through. Interestingly, this is one of the most aggressive systems that I've ever seen in terms of what they would expect to happen. So, for instance, they showed it as a benefit in terms of emergency services. So let's say a police drone is flying or a fire service drone is flying. And there would the technology, the U-Space technology, the RPAS platform ecosystem, our part of that, would be essentially, we would move out of the way. So let's say that the Daily Mail have a drone up in the air reporting on an incident, and now the fire service drone needs to get up into that airspace. Well, these drones will all be talking to each other, and it would gently nudge that drone out of the way automatically. That's what was in the presentation. So there would be an autonomous movement that you wouldn't be controlling as pilot on the ground, that would move your drone out of the way. Obviously, you're going to get warnings on screen, etc., that type of thing, to tell you that there's another aircraft that has priority in the area. It's the only way I presume they could put it, and that they need to move your drone out of the way, and then it would move, and then once that fire drone has finished its thing. Now, to me, there's some sensible side of that from the point of view that obviously, okay, we're going to move ourselves out of the way for fire drones and police drones and things like that, and ambulance drones, I suppose, with defibs and things in the future. So I can see a benefit in that, if that makes sense. I'm okay with that. But that, to me, is also selling to us in a way that we accept. Because, of course, if they had come out and said, our RPAS platform, this platform that we talk about here, which is an oversight and management tool for the ecosystem, that's us, remember, guys. It providing authorities with a number of valuable tools to ensure safe operations. If they'd come in and that presentation and said, well, that's what's going to happen when a wing delivery drone comes in the area, we're going to expect those drones to move out of the way. Now, put that up against one of the UK trials here with Altitude Angel Project Skyway, which we did a live show on, I can't believe it's actually a couple of months ago now, but there we go, time flies. And that system was talking about being able to have vision sensors so that the BVLOS traffic, the delivery drones, I don't want to mark that project as a delivery drone thing because it's talking about medical deliveries, and some of the consortium members are doing some absolutely fantastic groundbreaking work, which will benefit the future of the UK in so many ways. So I don't want to be derogatory towards any of the consortium members there, but with that system, if they had the winged drones flying up and down their corridor or within their area, if they had their sensors covering a city, it would detect that I'm flying my Mini 3 Pro or my or any of my aircraft, and it would actually send the delivery drone around it. So it would be the new aircraft, the aircraft that's coming into the airspace, that would go around it, rather than having to go through some technological nightmare of getting drones or hobby drones to have all of this technology on board, etc., and effectively be controlled by somebody else. So they're controlling what's already being controlled within that corridor, which I think is very, very clever. It's a very clever way of doing it. The wing side of things is a very aggressive format. It's a very aggressive format that I can see benefits from. I would love for to be able to get an alert and to know that there's a police drone or a fire drone. But actually, we all have, here in the UK, we all have this very handy app, the Drone Assist app on our phones. My phone's a little bit dirty, which I do apologise. I understand. Continue. Which obviously shows us, as you can see here, all of where we can fly and no-fly zones and everything else like that, etc. Which is fantastic. It's a very popular app, and this is in the pocket on the phones and tablets of so many people here in the UK. Why can't we just have notifications for those that choose to have them, which I think would be most for emergency services, etc., that pop on this? So some way of a police operator or a fire service operator notifying this app network where they're about to fly in a certain area, and everyone within a 2 or 3 mile radius with Drone Assist either active or even in their pocket gets a push notification to say, hey, there's going to be a fire drone operating in your area for the next 2.5 hours, kind of like unofficial NOTAMs, really. I know there are RATs, there are emergency temporary powers, etc., that can be put into place, but just in terms of actually telling people without having to bring out invasive technology that's going to take over drones, etc., which it's how do you work that into the FPV market? How do you work that into the model flying side of things, etc.? How does the wing system get off the ground completely? How does it get off the ground completely without ruining some part of the hobby, some part of even the lower end commercial side of things, and changing that forever? And change isn't always a bad thing, but I just don't think we need to do that just for the sake of delivery drones. When there's already technology, there's already resources, there's already infrastructure that we could use. So I really do hope that the Project Skyway project works out very well. So that's a little sort of, as I say, little look at Wing. They do have an app themselves for drone operators, which is mentioned there. However, over several months, maybe even actually a couple of years, where I've tried to open that and use that app, it's never worked for me. It always says timeout error. In fact, I'll try it live on air and see if it will load for me today. I'm not sure if they're just not focusing on it at the moment or whether it's something in the future, but it comes up with the OpenSky. It starts to load, looks very similar to any app that needs a sign in, etc. But then we have the dots running across the front of it. So I haven't been able to check that out fully to see what that can actually do. And it says OpenSky helps drone operators access information about where they can fly and check they meet the applicable regulatory requirements, which again is how Drone Assist, etc. does it. But I just feel like that language is a little bit more derogatory, personally. And then it talks about showing different types of drone flyers and how they use the app and that type of thing. That probably shows why it's not working for me, because it's United States, Australia, and then somewhere else. So I'm clearly not in one of the covered countries, I would say, from that point of view, although it did say available in the UK in the App Store. And here it is. So where I can fly, it's often difficult. Okay, so we have this already with many apps, so we don't really need that. It's good to have, a highly evolved one, but do we really want the delivery company, the delivery drone company, that's one of the discussion points for us as a community. Do we really want to be supporting, do we really want to be using an app that is from a drone company that wants our drones to automatically move out of the way of their drones and that type of thing, rather than the sort of Altitude Angel, Project Skyway things? And I've got no, massive allegiance or anything. They're not a sponsor, Altitude Angel, or anything. I just prefer the way they're handling this particular situation. So where I can fly, so yes, and it says that whether that means you're flying a single drone or entire fleet. Planning your flights, great, yeah, excellent. So you can look up and you can forward specific, again, all things which are available on the apps here in the UK and the US that you can always already do. Get approved, yep, okay, obviously Lance approval. I say Lance, is it Lank? K or C in the chat for my American viewers, and then the Australian government one there as well that's currently on there. And then fly the OpenSky automatically checks the airspace rules and provides a safety checklist for your drone flight. The app will advise when the airspace is clear for flight, or if the airspace is restricted. In the event you cannot fly, we will let you know the specific flight rules that apply so that you can make the proper adjustments to fly in compliance with local rules or change your flight plan. Again, as a writer, as a journalist, language is important to me. The written word is important to me. How something is formed, and it can sometimes show a little bit of intention, especially when you then factor in all of the rest of the information that you have. So the app will advise when the airspace is clear for flight, or if the airspace is restricted. In the event you cannot fly, we'll let you know. So essentially, to me, what they're saying is that the app will check if there's any winged drone deliveries happening in the area, and as soon as they're out of the way, you can take off. And I don't see that as something which is compliant with the open airspace side of things. Certainly not here in the UK, certainly not how I understand it to be in the US, in terms of people trying to control our airspace, people trying to tell us where to fly and that type of thing, or having what I would deem unfair access to airspace, and unfair control of airspace. Now, interestingly, another story, and I'm going to come onto the chat in a minute. I'm actually just going to allow that person's comment there, which was being hidden. There's nothing wrong with it at all. We will come on to the chat in a minute. So do let me know in the chat. I can see tons of messages, which we are going to come back through towards the end of the show to get your views on this as well. But there's one other story that I wanted to raise here as well, which is back in April. And this was looking at the Amazon 30 million. This is obviously one of the other big players who we, again, know have dipped in and out of this marketplace. We get press releases showing that they're making redundancies on Amazon Air, Prime Air, and they're scaling back. And we see, news stories here in the British press of test facilities now laying abandoned and scaled back, etc. So, and then suddenly we'll see something else saying, hey, Amazon Drone Delivery is coming again, because they want to talk about it again. So we know it's an up and down process, which I understand, but this is one of the stories back in April, which the New York Post talked about, that they were delaying their 30-minute flying deliveries again, and here they talked about very much that it's being pushed back after one drone caused a brush fire. Now, I won't go into the full story because it's an old story, but drones have crashed in test runs, as it says here, and even been the cause of brush fire that spans 25 acres. And all of this has obviously led to the scaling back of their promise to go towards the 30 minutes. So again, it shows a little bit, I suppose, of hindsight once they've carried out tests. The only way of knowing something's working is testing, etc., and trialing. And so I can see that from that point of view. It then, as it says here, the specific drone malfunctioned whilst in midair, leading to its motor shutting off. It then turned upside down and plummeted around 160 feet to the ground, sparking a fire that had to be put out by the local fire department. Now, as it says here, and I do agree with this, it is expected for experimental aircraft to malfunction. However, some Amazon employees told Bloomberg the company was taking unnecessary risks to get the program up and running. With rigorous testing like this, we expect these type of events to occur, and we apply the learnings from each flight towards improving safety. Amazon spokesman said in an emailed statement, no one's ever been injured or harmed as a result of these flights, and each test is done in compliance with applicable regulations. So again, just wanted to put that across as Amazon's response to this part of the story as well. But I suppose really what this sort of screams to me is the fact that we don't have many of these things happening, and we're already having issues like this, and we're already showing issues. Whereas the rest of drone use is seen as very, very safe because it is, frankly, and it concerns me that this is happening. As I say, I think we need to have innovation, and I think we need to be allowed to fail. We need to be allowed to make things happen. But some of the biggest players in this market are not ones that want to play very nicely with the rest of drone operators. And I mean everybody from multiple drone operating companies all the way down to us hobbyists, the main users. We are now the largest air users in the Western world. So we are bigger than manned aviation now. So we should have a say. We should have rights in terms of not allowing stakeholders who have a financial interest to come in and take over, to come in and dictate to us how the future of airspace will happen, and have us use their apps and that type of thing. So yeah, it is a concern to me. So as I say, we've looked at the partners, we've looked at that side of things. The app, as I say, I can't access, so I can't give my personal thing. It's obviously not working here in the UK. Other things that I would be concerned about, and again, I know as I've talked about different generations of this, and again, in 10 generations, maybe it won't be a cable system dropping a little box or something. Maybe there'll be something more substantial and a different way of delivering. I'm not sure. I mean, we very early on saw these boxes on the side of roads that the drones would come down and land in and drop the delivery off and fly off and that type of thing, which of course have been outmoded. I even saw old houses here in the UK, Victorian houses that have dormer windows where the window would be taken out and a box would be installed, which seems an awful lot just to get some deliveries by drone. It seems very costly and something that's taking up a window space, etc. So I've seen the industry trying to innovate. So hats off from that point of view. And when you try to innovate, it's very easy for others to sit and, like me, like I am now, pointing fingers and saying that won't work, that's stupid. But we have to go through those ideas to innovate, to get through to the other side, to get the good ideas as well. But my fear is that with the money, with the finance, that's what's driving this. And because, of course, all of this airspace change, all of this airspace future flights and everything has to be funded. And although there are governments and pushing through regulators that a lot of funding for a lot of independent work, which is good, there's obviously the huge dollar buy, the huge pound buy of these large companies, and that concerns me. I don't want these stakeholders. I don't think it's a good thing to have these here. So we are going to be doing a lot of content focused on this coming up on Geeksvana, because there's issues like that. There's issues like these cable systems, etc., that I just don't really feel like we have addressed yet, frankly. It's also from the point of view that if you look at one of the benefits that's been stressed several times when we've looked through these articles and looked through Wing's website, etc., and you hear it time and time again of the carbon neutral side of things, which I'm 110% behind. Surely we don't necessarily need drone delivery for that. Electric vans, these automated little vans that are dashing around doing the Walgreens stuff in Texas and that type of thing, and the funny little robots that we're seeing in Milton Keynes here in the UK and Russia and other places. Surely those electric vehicles are more efficient than of course big diesel delivery vans. We know we have that infrastructure. We've already got the roads in place, etc. We've already got the roads that can access, so we can have these vans pull up outside someone's house, and what happens is you walk up to the side of it, you put your PIN number in that's been given to you by text, the door opens and the box with your delivery in is there for you to access. So of course, again, that's going to be able to keep food warmer. You're also going to have chilled cabinets if someone's ordered something chilled, etc. So to me, that sounds more exciting in terms of what you can deliver as well. And obviously, as I was saying, you've got the infrastructure in place to allow those vans and allow those vehicles to already happen. The other advantage there, of course, is that apart from when perhaps the full-sized vans, electric vans, we need to find out the autonomous side of driving, which obviously Tesla are struggling with, and other companies are struggling with at the moment as far as getting it right past that point, is the fact that the safety arguably is going to be better from the point of view that these vehicles are on the ground, especially the little tank little things which are present in Milton Keynes and in Russia, etc. From the point of view that when they fail, they just stop. And get dealt with. Basically, they're not falling on power lines or falling out the sky. There was a manna delivery drone in Ireland which fell out the sky and crashed onto a pavement, and Facebook posts and reports of that in social media very quickly disappeared, but it very certainly happened and was reported in the local press there. So surely that's a safer infrastructure. So I think one of the questions I'm going to be asking as we go along this is not just to try and get too excited about these awesome looking drones, but is drone delivery even needed? And is there even a use case that's going to scale it to the point to make it even worthwhile for all of these partners? Or will it ever allow more than just simple, tiny consignments of coffee and that type of thing? We obviously, and this is another point in terms of the evolution, we need battery gains, we need battery technology to leap forward to be able to make this work as well. And perhaps all of this work is happening in the pretense of that happening. Who knows? But it'd be good to get your views on this. And as I say, I'm going to be digging more into this because it is an area of quite considerable concern. So let's go back through the chat and have a look. Tag at Geeksvana if there's anything in particular you want to raise or any particular points you want to make right now based on what I've been talking about. And we'll go back through those. I expect the name XJet to come up a few times. So yes, John Cooper saying, wow, this actually did cause a power outage. Yes. So yeah, it did actually take it out. No damage because obviously it came to a rest. So it was a controlled landing on power lines. Can anybody tell me another part of aviation that makes controlled landings on power lines? And XJet says, typical for media reports on drones. Much of the fake reporting was fake. Some reports said drone caught on fire. I see no flames or smoke. Yeah, absolutely. Keith Wilson, drone delivery, would it not be open to them being brought down for the products they carry? How would they avoid this? And isn't there a big risk if it does come down amongst people on the ground? Yeah, there is that, isn't there? There is this thing of it's low-flying aircraft. It's unmanned low-flying aircraft. So by taking it down, you're not hurting anybody on board. And they're dropping these cables. And I've thought that because I've wondered what happens. You unhook the goods from the bottom, and this is currently, bear in mind, this is currently actually in use at the moment. So you get your little box delivered, you unhook it, and yeah, what happens when you actually want to rehook that? When you've got something, do they have security things in measure? How could they possibly? What if I hooked that to the back of my car? What if I hooked that to the back of a passing lorry or something? Which sounds sort of, Incredibles cartoonish, etc. But yeah, what if people interfere with it? That to me is something which I think is very concerning. Flying Low says it would either cost a lot for a quick drone delivery for one pilot operating one drone, or it would be cheaper for one operator monitor watching over multiple flights, also their airspace situation. Yes, Flying Low, I think certainly they would look to have it over, the autonomy needs to rule on this side of things, certainly. Was the delivery drone at that height? Surely 60 meter, this is Chris Hearn, hi Chris, surely 60 meter travel height before positioning over the delivery point, then descending. Clearly this is a pie in the sky scenario. Did you put that comment just so you could put that very clever pun? Come on, Chris, admit it. But I agree with you. The heights and that type of thing, it's interesting. And that's one of the things as far as how they plan their routes and the heights that they fly at is something that I'm going to look into in terms of what actually interests me. Did they get the drone back and was there a charge? Yes, Andy, they did, as you probably heard later in the story. John Cooper, I'm sure the utility bill to roll a truck, disturb customers, etc., for retrieval. I'm sure there must have been, mustn't there? Because I know they say they're not charging for damages, etc., but I'm sure there must have been some kind of discussion there, especially with the insurance-heavy world that we live in, frankly. Droning Western Australia says, Geeksvana, secretly it was conducting power line inspections. Yes, perhaps they were doubling up. And it's interesting you say that, actually, because I did see some discussion. I can't remember which company it was from. So if you remember which company this was, do put it in the chat. And it quickly disappeared when it got very, very negative response, which was one of these delivery drone companies that also said, hey, and whilst we're in the area, we can do a roof survey for you and we can check the security of your house and make sure everything's okay and that type of thing. And of course, that was being offered, I'm sure, with very good intentions, but to your average Joe public that isn't even involved in drones, all of us that love drones and everything else that understand all of that and still probably wouldn't want it. But can you imagine general public being told that these delivery drones are also going to spy on you and take information that they can then sell back to you at a cost every time they deliver to you? So yeah, I don't think that sounds particularly advantageous. Jonathan Jackson, hi, good to see you, sir. Hope you're well. And I don't disagree with them. The power line can be fixed. The lives that the drones could save have damaged can't be fixed. So the question is, do they deem more important? Yep, very good point. Flying low again, having a drone delivery to your home is a long way off, but having it delivered to certain locations could be more possible. Hospital situation, yeah, which I completely agree with. The use cases for this, some of the there are various consortiums running in Europe at the moment, and including here in the UK, and some of those use cases are fantastic. And I think some of the things they can do will be life-saving and will cut carbon emissions, etc. Bruce, he's never seen a Domino's delivery car stuck on power lines. No, but I'm sure some have crashed. I'm sure some have caused issues. But I don't think I would agree with you that I've never seen a Domino's delivery car ever cause issues to 3,000, 2,000, 3,000 people and all of the issues there. Because again, I'm sure, although the thing that bursts into flames and cause an immediate risk to people, your power going out can be quite bad. If you're of those thousands of people, there are going to be people with serious medical conditions that need power. And I know they'll have backups and everything else like that, but it is causing issues. It is something which is causing increasing risk, basically, which is interesting. I'm sure this data is going to be fascinating for Wing to use. And Miss Stevie Woo, good to see you. No, it's not efficient. I'd rather invest in making Deliveroo bikes legislated and street legal and then efficient. Yeah, it's interesting because, and again, we have the infrastructure, don't we? We already have that in place. And XChat says Google are only doing this so they can claim experience when pitching their upcoming UTM to regulators. And I know that is one of Bruce's thought processes on this, that actually they're not necessarily, with Wing and Google, they're not necessarily interested in the drone delivery side of things. It's more the UTM, it's more that side of things which they want to have control of, shall we say. Okay, so let's take a few more of your comments in the chat. Droning Western Australia, I don't object to moving out of the way for emergency service drones, but move out of the way for a delivery drone. Next, they'll want us to move out of the way for road-based delivery vehicles. Yeah, exactly. Where does it stop? Where does it stop where actually your local authority says, actually, if there's any police incident, even close, we don't want your, once you give that away, once you give that over just so they can have their delivery drones, where does it stop? Where does that problem stop? Which I know, again, others would argue, we know one of those people, in terms of how far things will already go. But to me, that starts to become a bridge too far. And I think it's about the stakeholders and which stakeholders are in control, how much the stakeholders that are due to make an awful lot of money from this and need to make money from it to get the investment back that they've already made, how much control, how much of an ear are they given above and beyond what is sacred ground in terms of safe airspace, in terms of free airspace, accessible airspace. That to me is certainly one there. XJet, would it detect that my DJI Avata had flipped upside down and was trying to find its way back to China by grinding away at the ground below? Yes, we'll move on from that one. The Avata flip, or I'm calling it the Mads flip, but anyway. Borgen Evolution, good to see you. So their ecosystem hinders on them having a way to take control of our aircraft at will. But should they crash our gear, we're responsible and be the ones for getting hammered. An excellent point, and that's a point that I'm definitely going to be looking into from the point of view that we are told, quite rightly by regulators and law enforcement and anybody else that's a stakeholder in the airspace, that we as drone pilots, drone operators, have complete responsibility. We're the pilot in control. We have full control of this system. And actually, really, where is the line in terms of if that drone then is under control from somebody else? Am I still responsible for what happens to that drone during that period? It seems a very sticky wicket to me. It really does. I will go through and read everybody's comments on this as well, and it will, all of this conversation will certainly help me in terms of the content I intend to build on this. So again, if you've got any other specific interest on this, then let me know. Clifffield at Geeksvana, surely this delivery malarkey cannot continue, not being financially viable and all that. No company is going to want to run at a loss. And I agree with you, Cliff. I think the point of scalability is really where this starts to come into it. But of course, we're talking about many iterations in the future, many evolutions of all different types of things, but we have to be careful what direction those evolutions go in. But there we are. We're coming up to just after the hour mark. Hopefully I've started this conversation in a way that we've got a few avenues to go off in. I've got a few more thoughts on what you think as a community, which is very interesting. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for engaging in yet another story here on Geeksvana Live. And really, that's one of the things I want these live shows to do. I want these live shows to create content that we're going to go away and find out and really get into the nitty gritty, but always, as we've done with the recent police recordings, having in the back of my mind what you, my audience, want to know about these things. And I've got a really good sense of that. I'll have an even bigger sense when I've read all the live chat comments. And anyone watching this on the replay, do comment below to let me know as well. And there's always my email, sean@geeksvana.com, if you've got strong views on this side of things that you want me to keep in mind whilst I'm doing all of this research and bringing you this hopefully engaging content. Because one thing for sure, the drone delivery thing isn't going away. There's trials all over the world. We need to get to grips with what's happening. We need to understand what's happening so that we can see the directions this is happening. So we need to know what we need to do politically, socially, and morally to be able to stop anything that shouldn't be happening and any directions that we're going in. And yeah, really take control of things, frankly, as the largest airspace users in the world right now. Excellent. So as I say, thank you very much for watching Geeksvana Live this evening. Stay safe out there, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic week. Tomorrow evening, tune back in for a live premiere of the UK Police Powers video, which should be released. The tag will be going up in the morning for that if it is, so keep an eye out on the channel and your YouTube reminders for that one. And otherwise, we've got lots of other content coming up this week as well. We've got lots of releases coming up over the next 2 weeks especially, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you, everybody. See you next time on Geeksvana Live. Bye-bye.